hearty welcome to Grandma's Wealth Wisdom with your neighborly hosts, Brandon and Amanda Neely. This is the only podcast that helps you take charge of your cash flow and leverage your assets simply and sustainably, the way Grandma used to.
Hey, I'm Brandon, and welcome to Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, where we help you break through to a smart, stable financial future with the tried and true wisdom Grandma used.
And hey, I'm Amanda. This is episode 82. We're interviewing our good friend, Marty Smith. We'll get to his bio in just a second, but we've titled this episode, Do Your Best and Leave the Rest. That's one piece of wisdom that Marty's grandma passed on to him that he gets into what that means in our interview today. But also before I share Marty's official bio, I should let you know, full disclosure, Brandon and I have a life insurance policy with the company that Marty works for. We're fans of theirs. We're not getting paid or anything like that to interview Marty. We just love his story and his personality. We think he's a really great guy, and we wanted to share his story and his wisdom with you. And so that's why we chose to interview him. I know you're going to really love how he tells stories, the awesome things that he has to share with us. I took lots of notes as we went, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Brandon, anything else you want to add before I jump into the bio?
Oh, just that he's a wise person. He's learned a lot from his family. And just listening to this interview, I know that you're going to take a lot from it. And again, seeing how money really works. So if you can be educated, start this education process with listening to him maybe, and then see where it leads. So do you want to read a little bit about who Marty is?
Yeah. So Marty Smith is the regional vice president of the Security Mutual Life Insurance Company.
They've been around for a while.
Yep. He'll share that in the interview. Marty is the champion of the infinite banking concept, bank on yourself, circle of wealth and wisdom at his company at Security Mutual. Marty grew up in New Jersey. He attended Rutgers University and, in his words, has been a prisoner in New York City for the past 4 decades. Join me in welcoming Marty Smith.
Well, the thing about being a prisoner in New York is, at many times in the past 4 decades, I've had the opportunity to leave. It's not a financial thing. It's just a question of lifestyle. So the thing about the Manhattan lifestyle with the wonderful spontaneity that it used to be just made it such a wonderful place, because you get up, roll out of bed. Oh, you want a breakfast? Oh, there's a million places to go. You couldn't eat at every restaurant, diner, dive in Manhattan, if you lived another 30 years. I mean, going to a different place every day. And, there's just, Manhattan was just such a treat for the senses in terms of art and culture and music and intellectual stimulation that you could have at every turn. I mean, that was the draw, certainly for my generation 30, 40 years ago, to want to come into the city, to be into the city, especially the people who ended up in the city were from the suburbs, or they weren't from New York. They were from anywhere but New York, who wanted to come into the city and be part of that. And
like you from New Jersey.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
I would bet the company, Security Mutual, has had a big part to play in the culture setup, the infrastructure. I mean, they've been around for how long?
Since 1886. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure they've had a little bit to play.
Well, it's, Security Mutual is, around 180 miles northwest of New York City. Again, because of all the people. I mean, again, there are 50 million people within 50 miles of, the Empire State Building, as we'd like to say. And, a lot of the business, there was all these, New York City and the New York metropolitan area general agents and life insurance. New York City had its John Street brokers. That was for John Street is a few streets above, Wall Street. So there used to be a place where, lots of the major insurance brokers used to have their offices. And then, certainly, the big life insurance companies that are here in Manhattan, the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company and New York Life, and even little ones scattered all around at all different times. So it's an exciting, it's a very exciting place. But
well, take us back to New Jersey. What was money like for you growing up there?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I thought about that, and the first thing that came to mind was every Friday, my father would go to work with a dime in his pocket. That's it. That's what he had left. He'd get paid on Fridays, and on Friday morning, he'd end up going to work with a dime in his pocket. He'd have to wait till lunchtime to get his pay envelope, not a check, but a pay envelope with singles and fives and tens and 20s in it there and change. And at lunchtime, he'd open the envelope, take out the change, and go buy himself lunch. He'd come home on Friday evening there. He'd give most of the money to my mother, right? My mother would write out a bank deposit slip, and then the four of us, myself and my brother and my father and mother, would hop in the car and drive up to the bank. And, it used to have that drive-in service there. You put the money in there with the ticket, the pneumatic tube would suck it into the bank, and guess what? Hey, you had money for the week there. So
you get a dum-dum or something, right? Usually.
What's that?
You get like a candy if you're.
Oh, well, you had to walk into the bank for that.
Oh, I got you.
But that was a good 50, 60 years ago now when I think about that. But my father was an auto body repairman, mechanic, worked with his brothers there. My father was the youngest of 11. He was a first generation American. His mother and father died when he was during the Depression, during the 1930s, and he was raised by his older brothers and sisters. When I say older, most of them were out of the house and married. He had a 19-year-old sister, a 17-year-old sister, a 15-year-old brother, and a 13-year-old brother who were still in the house, and they lived in the house. My grandparents on my father's side, I never met them. They died, within 6 months of each other. So that was it. And considering that the 20th century, I always think as the century of the car, of the automobile, all my father's brothers, all my uncles who were married to my aunts were all mechanics or auto body repairmen. So it was the century of the car. I can't imagine how they do it now with all the crazy electronics there. It's pretty interesting. Half of them own their own businesses, and the brothers normally worked for the brothers who didn't own the business. Were part of one of the shops that they had. It's very interesting. But
fun fact: Amanda is the youngest of 11 as well.
Oh yeah. Well, let me see what kind of traits you have. It's my father. Because of that, he dropped out of. He started high school and then dropped out, but then he went to work. Everybody worked. That was that's what you did. You had to bring in money to the house, and he worked in some chemical factories that were in his hometown in New Jersey, and and then ultimately he was a paratrooper in World War II, came back from that. And then, 6 years after that, he married or 5 years after that, he married my mother, who grew up in New York City, or as we would say, grew up in Queens, because the city was Manhattan. Even if you lived in the outer boroughs in New York City, you didn't live in the city. You commuted into the city to go to work normally. That wasn't like that. But
how did you end up in doing what you do within life insurance? Going, your family is a car family, to you doing this.
You mean instead of using the tools of ignorance here, or skillful hands of my ancestors to use the intellectual skills of the brain? It's pretty interesting. If I could tell it quickly, my mother worked for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company at 1 Madison Avenue at the end of World War II. And in fact, I would say that I started at Metropolitan Life as a fetus because my mother was pregnant at the time, when I was born. What happened in the strangest thing about life is the only person, when I was a boy, and I mean like 3, 4, 5, like that, people used to come to the house. The doctor would come in his pink caddy and, but he'd be, casually dressed when he came there. And, any other workman or somebody would come to the house and, do their business there. But there was only one person who came to our house who was dressed in a suit. And that turned out to be the Metropolitan Life Insurance debit agent who would collect a quarter or 40 cents from my mother to pay for the insurance policy that was on my father. And so the thing is, for some reason, the Metropolitan salesperson would always leave like a promotional calendar. And on the calendar, there would be, all the different dates and stuff like that. But that's what stuck out in my mind. And sure enough, if you can believe it, I started my career in Manhattan as a proofreader for a company called the American Management Association, which created all these management seminars and consultants and things like that. But then I left there because I became a direct mail marketing wizard, guru. I loved it, things like that. And sure enough, I needed more money. So I answered a blind box ad in the New York Times. That is a classified ad. Do they even have them anymore? It didn't tell you what it was. So I wrote like a sales letter to get an interview. Sure enough, the interview was from the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company at 1 Madison Avenue. So once I found that out, I did all the tricks of the trade of direct mail marketing to, I waited 2 weeks before I replied to it. I was the last person who sent in, but I didn't send in a resume. I just picked up the different features that they wanted. And sure enough, I got the last interview and that was it. And so once that happened, I got in charge of the direct mail marketing of MetLife for their personal insurance marketing area. So that's what started in insurance. And from there, I went to a variety of different life insurance companies. So.
Yeah.
So then you understand a lot about business then of marketing. And so you're in with maybe these bigger corporations, but you have a thumb on kind of like entrepreneurship and direct marketing and marketing in general, I would think.
Well, it's from working with, agents in the field. I mean, that was always my claim to fame. I'd always want to be interviewing or out in the field or speaking with agents and what they were doing, try to tap into what they were doing and then bring it back for the whole organization to try to use those ideas or those techniques in order to, help people make more sales.
Like YouTube videos or things like that,
Videos,
It's new now.
Videos. Well, here I'm talking back in the 1980s. Here, we didn't even have cell phones. I'd have to go to a payphone or something like that. But it's all kind of interesting from a marketing perspective. And then ultimately, being a direct marketer, I kept thinking, well, if I can get people to respond to words, letters, pamphlets, brochures, and to buy things without even having to be in person, like how much better could I be if I actually sold people? And then it wasn't until I was as I like to say, the almost president of a life insurance company until, guess what? I got fired. It was a family-owned business, whatever. I didn't hit it off with one of the members of the family there, and they decided to relieve me of that. But guess what I did there? From there, I went into sales. And so I was a salesperson, a life insurance salesperson. And then I realized there's something I'm still missing about money, how money really works. And that was kind of been my quest. I mean, the whole point about this is, when you're younger, there's a certain discontent, dissatisfaction. You don't know how things work, but life gets in the way. You have a family, you have your job, you have everything, so you got to do what you have to do in order to, survive and thrive. Certainly, being on your own to do things. But what ultimately happened was that you're missing something. And that was something that was key for me. I always knew I was, I was missing something until, of course, you find it. And
yeah, I want to hear this story. So sounds like you were questioning, how does money really work? How can I make it work for me? And you had this turning point where you decided to dig into it.
well, yeah.
What was there any kind of like trigger that made you decide this is the time or anything like that?
Well, what ultimately happened was, I was doing well as a salesperson, but I knew I wasn't doing well enough, right? It's just like, because I was missing something. So ultimately what happened, I went back to work for one of my good friends who happened to be the, senior vice president at Security Mutual. And so literally what happened then was I got involved. I was sent to this seminar, which was for what's called Cal College, Circle of Wealth. So I went down there to see Don Blanton, and I walked in. I didn't really know what it was going to be. There was a football field of agents there. And I kept thinking like, oh my God, like what I've died and gone to heaven. This is incredible. Sure enough, nobody else from Security Mutual was there because there was an ice storm, because the meeting was in January and nobody else could get there except me. I met one of my general agents who said, hey, Marty, there's this guy who really wants to meet somebody from Security Mutual. And I said, oh, great. Yeah, well, take me to him. So sure enough, who does he introduce me to? Nelson Nash. And that was it. So Nelson and so I introduced myself. And of course, when I hear Nelson's accent, I said, oh, Nelson, I'm involved with the Civil War Roundtable of New York. And Nelson says, oh, Marty, you mean the War of Northern Aggression? And I go, oh yeah, that's right. You're right. You're from Georgia and Alabama. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So we had this wonderful conversation. And then he said, well, Marty, you really need to come to the IBC think tank in Birmingham, Alabama next month.
Could you tell for our audience, if they don't know who Nelson Nash is, who is he and why was he so important to?
Oh, yeah, sure. Change. Nelson Nash is the founder, creator, discoverer, chief promulgator of the infinite banking concept, IBC. IBC is based on Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, which I would say Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash is the most important book about money that you're ever going to read. If you're a business owner, you're going to do X amount more of business once you read and understand that book. That book is the most important book about money that you're ever going to read. And I say that continually for all these years now after I've met Nelson, and it's still true. It is the basis where everything comes back to becoming your own banker, which is you need to bank on yourself. And obviously, Pamela Yellen is one of probably the most successful organizations and entities that helps promulgate and talk about the idea of becoming your own banker. To bank on yourself is really the concept that I believe everybody should. Well, that's my my calling now.
Yeah,
that's it. No, please. I've got to be there.
Yeah. So take us back. You meet Nelson. He invites you to the IBC.
So I meet Nelson. Now, normally, in this role that I'm in, like I'm a wholesaler. So Nelson says, well, let me take one of my books here. So he takes a book out, takes his pen there, like he was Ralph Cramden. He writes in this beautiful statement there, Nelson Nash, BYOB. And it says, it hands me the book. And he says, I'm looking forward to seeing you in Birmingham. And he said, and by the way, that's $20. You can go pay my son-in-law for the book. So I said, wow, I love this sales technique. So sure enough, I go pay my $20. I read that book, before I leave Cal College. Then I read that book again before I leave Cal College. And then I read that book on the plane coming back. I get home into New York City. My wife says to me, "Oh, how was it?" And I said to her, I said, "I finally found what I've been looking for." And it was as simple as that. And that was the day, that was the experience that changed my life by reading that book. And, I'm ever grateful for Nelson and for his friendship over the years, for writing it and certainly being such a supporter. So sure enough, what we did is we went down to the IPC think tank, and, things haven't stopped. It's been like, our foot has been on the gas pedal. If I've got to throw in a plug for Security Mutual Life, which I will, because I love working there, because I love what I'm doing. We believe in it. We support it. We want to do everything we can to make sure that agents in the field and clients who become their own banker have the support that they need to achieve their financial goals and understand how money works. So it's really quite exciting there. But that was really the turning point there of meeting Nelson Nash.
How long ago was that?
Oh, that was probably a good, let me see, 14, 15 years ago.
Okay. So over the last 14, 15 years, how has your life changed because you learned to think like a banker and to adopt some of, if you don't mind sharing some personal details there of how your story has evolved?
Guess what? I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire because I've become my own banker. It's as simple as that. Pamela Yellen has in her book, there's this wonderful story of this accountant, and certainly it shows his net worth. Well, his net worth is up, his net worth is down, his net worth is up, his net worth is down. Well, of course, that's the way it's going to be if you don't understand how money works. And then literally, just like the graph that's in that book, in Pamela's book, there's the point where you become your own banker, you start funding those policies, and the next thing you know, that line just goes straight up. And it's like, oh my God, how's this possible? And so you never worry about things again. I mean, it's like, oh, okay, all right. What's the market doing? I don't care what the market's doing. It's like, I just know that my money is in a safe, protected place. It grows tax deferred. I have access to it 24 hours a day. It never goes down. It's always going to go up. I don't care what's taking place really outside. Obviously I do care, but I mean, it's not like it's not like, unfortunately, there are people who are invested in the market, and the market's up, they're happy. The market's down, they're depressed. But, I don't have that. I don't have that kind of reaction. It's just like, oh, wait a second. Well, honey, it's just going up. That's the way that it works. And
crypto is like that now. Crypto, everybody was in crypto or is. And then
right.
Elon Musk does something and it drops. And I'm like, oh, man.
Right. Again, you want to be in control. I mean, the wonderful thing about becoming your own banker, banking on yourself, it puts you in control. It makes you feel good. Your money grows in a tax-deferred position. You're able to access the money tax-free. The wonderful thing is you're able to put the money back in, repeat the process again and again. That is a position of power to be in.
Grandma always said, eat your vegetables, look both ways before crossing the road, and never risk your financial future on elements of the market you can't control. That grandma, always good for some tried and true advice. And although some of her wisdom seems to have skipped a generation, you don't have to be left behind. Download Grandma's top tips for an independent financial future absolutely free when you visit grandmaswealthwisdom.com. Don't wait. Get Grandma's best tips today.
What I think what you're saying too is you are good at making money, sales, and making lots of money probably through that. Keeping the money is a very different thing. And most entrepreneurs and business owners
and salespeople and employees, everybody,
they're really good at making it, maybe, but keeping it. And to be honest, we're in a world that everything is biting for our attention, right? If you don't have a plan for your money, someone has a plan for your money.
As you know, Brandon, as I like to say, there are people out there who want the money in your pocket more than you want it. and they'll do what they have to do what they have to do or say what they have to say to get it out of your pocket and put it into theirs. I think, when I was thinking about grandma and stuff like that, it's, grandma always stressed education. She was a seamstress. My mother's side of the family owned a fruit and vegetable store, as immigrants tend to do. She wanted everybody to get education. Hard work was the way to go. No matter what you did, you would always want to save, and then you'd save. That's it. You wanted more money, guess what you do? You trade your time for money. You get another job. That's the whole thing. If you're willing to work, you can make money. It's, it's a good, I think for, for myself, for my brothers and sisters, for the people I've grown up with, everybody's been a hard worker. Nobody's, if you needed something, you don't depend on anybody else. You just go to work and do it. You have to work 2 jobs, or you work 2 jobs. That's, you're not afraid to do that in order to make money, but that may not be the most efficient way to do it because, as you said, holy mackerel, it'd be great to keep some of this as opposed to having to spend it all, or on whatever thing comes up that it needs to be spent. So
as you think about that, immigrant, seamstress, fruit and vegetable store owner, grandma, what do you think, if she were here today and able to share what she's proud of about where you're at right now, what would she say?
Oh, I think she'd be extremely proud that, all of her grandchildren went to college, graduated. Some people became professionals. Other people have other skills. Everybody's independent financially, not dependent on anyone else. My grandmother and my mother used to repeat always, no matter what you did, do your best and leave the rest. Do your best and leave the rest. It's, that's no matter what activity, what kind of job you had, always do your best. And frankly, at one point in my career, I had like 70 employees reporting to me, and I would have meetings with them. And I would say to them, hey, listen, this is the real story here. I expect everybody here who works, for the company, you need to do your best every day. You have to, you need to be dedicated. You need to be hardworking. You need to just do whatever you can to succeed here. And I said, I promise you this, by doing your best and leaving everything here out on the floor, you're going to be rewarded for that. I know you're going to be rewarded because I've been rewarded for it. And I said, and even more importantly, because when you work for a company, there's all these rules, restrictions about how much you could get, if you don't get a promotion, how much money you can earn. I said, if you don't get it here, if you don't receive the recognition and money that you think you deserve, guess what? There's going to be another company out there who's willing to do that. That's what you have to do. And that's why you always do your best, because that's how you're going to succeed in life. And, people would look at me, like, what is he saying? If I'm not rewarded here, I should go somewhere else. And I go, yeah, of course. That's the whole point. You need to be paid for what you're worth. If I can't reward you for what you're doing, guess what? I'm happy. I'm so grateful that you've done that. But guess what? I'm never going to hold you back. You need to achieve what you need to achieve for yourself. Everybody's an individual here. That's the big thing. Plus, the other thing about grandma, which I was thinking about, is, grandma would always say, well, you don't have to be rich or have lots of money to be happy or enjoy life. And that was, I think, a gift that I had from both sides of my family, from my father's side and from my mother's side of the family. Family was what was important. Love was what was important. It's great to have money, but guess what? You can enjoy your life and have fun and do what you need to do, because happiness, just like making money, shouldn't be the goal in life. The goal in life is being yourself. But in order to be yourself, find something that you love to do, like to do, want to do, feel productive at doing, whatever whatever that might be. people aren't going to be judging you by what you think. They're going to only be judging you by your actions. That's the only thing they can see. So what are you going to do in your life? Oh, well, if I think about most life insurance practitioners, agents, it's like, well, what do we do? Well, we tell people that they need to take care of their families, and that's part of our goal. We teach people how money works. What a wonderful thing to do to help them achieve their goals, and and show them. Guess what? There are people out there who want your money more than you do. You need to hang on to it, and this, we believe, is one of the best ways, one of the true ways, in order for you to become your own banker, to protect your family, to do what you need to do to get the things you want in life. So it's pretty cool stuff.
I see it as it's protecting your family. And most people see life insurance as just, it's for them, but it's protecting them in case something happens to you. That's
right.
The essence of life insurance. But with the infinite banking concept, you can access that money to grow wealth.
Oh, yeah.
In your lifetime now, as opposed to waiting until, all right, now I paid all this and my wife or kids get something, but you're able to have both things.
Right.
What would you say is the biggest, as you've been in this industry, misconceptions, things that people just totally get wrong, that you're like, I've said this over and over again, and how did people not get it? That you're like, really? Seriously? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's, I did have this thought, as much as we do, because obviously, we're educators, and at the heart of it, we're trying to educate people what's happening. It's, there's a certain tendency now in our society to want to solve everybody's problem, right? Society has to solve this, I mean, what it ultimately comes down to, the only way that people do this is by no matter how much we're part of a group or a tribe or a family and stuff like that, we're still individuals. We still go to bed at night by ourselves, ultimately, with our thoughts, and the idea behind that is that I believe that people need to say it out loud, is people need to suffer. People need to feel discontent. People need to be in pain. People need to be unhappy, because it's that unhappiness, that pain, that dissatisfaction that is going to drive them to search for what needs to be found for them. My whole life, I know I've suffered all during this time. And guess what? I found what I was looking for. And I know that can work for other people too. And especially since we deal with money that everybody has to deal with, people need to feel that displeasure, that something's missing there. And we need to find those people. We need to find those people in our profession who are unhappy about what they're doing, and then be able to lead them ultimately and bring out of them what the solution is. And that's, I think, what, banking on yourself, becoming your own banker, is really what this is all about. It's the wonderful thing that Nelson would always say is, he never really struggled with trying to explain to people about what the concept was. He would say, hey, I want you to read the book. If you read the book and you understand it, guess what's going to happen? You're going to understand it. And that's certainly been my experience over the past decade, is when you sell the book and have them read it, and people come back to you, and the next thing they say to you is, well, Marty, I've got like $100,000. Can I start with that? I said, yeah, we can start with that. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about this. Let me find out I want to make sure that you understand what you've read there. And that's all part of the process of going through for that person themselves to come to that realization, that conscious level of, oh, wow, there's something really important here. That's something I've probably I might have thought about it, but now it's sort of on paper, it's concrete. And guess what? is what I want to do. So it's pretty exciting along those lines. It's like Don Bland from Circle of Wealth would always say, hey, people ask me, what do I do? I says, well, I take people to the Grand Canyon. It's like, what do you mean? He says, well, when I show them what I have to offer, ultimately about becoming your own banker, it's like showing them the Grand Canyon. And when people see it, it's like, oh my God, this is incredible. This, when you see people have that reaction, it's pretty amazing there. And you've done what you were supposed to do to help them along the way. So it's pretty good stuff.
I think we're getting short on time, but I want to make sure to talk about your future. Where do you see things going from here? What are you excited about?
Or even in the industry too.
Yeah. Wherever you want to go with that.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a crazy time. I think what we have to do as professionals, as bank on yourself practitioners, followers of the infinite banking concept, is to press on to the individuals that we come across. I think that's the most important thing.
Why do you think it's going to be a crazy time?
Just because of all the outward political things that are taking place. There's a real conflict that, in society. Well, this is another whole story for another whole hour. Speaking of, since I've been a big Civil War person for the past, more than 20 years, economic liberty versus economic security. What is the country going to ultimately choose? What will millennials choose down the line here? And I think that's going to be something that's going to affect all our industries, all financial services. It's, do we want individual freedom, liberty, individual rights along those lines? Is that going to still be the founding principle of the United States of America? And I think that once that question is, I think, in dispute right now of what the country should be. We have a lot of discontented people here. I don't want to get political about this, or at least too much, but I see this as economic liberty versus economic security, the rights of the individual being more important than ultimately the rights of the group. And I'll come back to this to say it again. No matter what you do during the day, no matter what what you're unhappy or discontented about, you're still going to have to face this as an individual. We are all individuals, even though we're married, and even though we have children. Everybody has their own individual identity, their own individual destiny and goals. And you have to do that. Society can't do that for you. Society can make it easier financially to give you different things, but ultimately, you're going to have to go to bed at night and fall asleep with yourself and have your own dreams. You're not going to have dreams of others. You're going to have your own. What do you want to achieve? What's important to you? What would be the guiding principles that
I do think that there's I've had a lot of conversations with people who say that there's a lot of, what do you call it, black swan events coming, meaning there's a lot of, a barge gets stuck and it's going to affect things, or
right.
We lose gas in North Carolina. That was us a while back.
Right, sure.
And I think more of those things are going to happen. And one of the questions that our clients tend to ask a lot is, okay, things are so unshaky. There's so much happening. What would you say to a person that says, well, what about your company? Is Security Mutual, are they going to survive it?
Right. Right.
What would you tell people on that kind of front?
Well, I would say, although history is no predictor of the future, here's not only Security Mutual, but other companies. They've been around for over 100 years. They've weathered all different types of political and economic stresses and depressions, wars, downturns, things like that. I think, from the perspective of Security Mutual, it's, the life insurance industry is considered like a dinosaur industry. But guess what? That dinosaur carries a lot of weight with it, has trillions of dollars of assets in it, and it's regulated, probably even more than it should be. But guess what? It's in the safer places where you store your money. And ultimately, again, I don't know if there is a better money storage system that's ever been created than the dividend paying cash value whole life insurance, which may be the best financial product that's ever been created because of all the features that it allows you to have. And certainly during this time, it's pretty good to be in a place where your money is under the control of a contract as opposed to being at the mercy of the market and the market forces. And that goes around it there. So, you will be here long after I'm gone, and you'll have to, if there's a way to communicate somehow in the future to those who have passed on, I'd love you to tell me what, how this is all going to turn out. But, I feel very confident about the life insurance industry and what we do and what we're trying to tell people and educate them about. So,
well, I want to just say, like, with going back to Grandma, Security Mutual in itself was around when Grandma was
yes.
or not even born, right?
Great grandma, yeah.
And I think that's one of the things I wanted to land on and make sure that our listeners knew is like, hey, this company that you work for specifically has been around since the beyond greatest generation.
Yeah, definitely. It's having that faith in the future there. And, I think there are definitely people who have that outlook. I think most of us have that outlook because, we love our families. We want the best for them, and when we all realize we're all related in some way, much closer than we've all imagined, whatever, we'll start treating each other with a little more respect, kindness, and compassion that we all deserve. But we shall see. But you know what? Love what you do. It's going to carry you a long way.
We love it. Like what we do here, and the lives changed. I never would have thought we had gone from coffee to this and Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. I'm like, what the heck? But like the lives we've changed already in the short amount of being in this business is amazing. And we want to help more people do that, of course. And love that you're a part of our team as we have challenging cases or any of that you're there to help us. So
I'm proud and happy and always look forward to working with you guys. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
More Amanda than me, I'm sure. But,
No, I wouldn't, Brandon, I wouldn't say that now. No, it's 50-50 here. That's the way it is in life,
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Marty. Any final words of wisdom to pass on, or if people are like, I need to talk to Marty, or how would you like for them to reach out, if at all?
Oh, well, I mean, obviously they could always, contact me directly, or, I could give you my number there. It's 347-443-2178. And my work email is msmith@smlny.com. But certainly if they contact you, and I'm happy to speak with you and them together, it's that would be my preference, because I trust you to do the best for them. And, I can't do things directly. I can talk, but, but I need to work like that. It's just, hey, listen, you need to work hard in life. You need to educate yourself. You need to work hard. You need to save your money. I don't know if there's anything other than that.
Love it.
Love your family. That's the way that's probably the most important thing. So
awesome.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this.
Awesome.
So Brandon, what's your reaction to that interview with Marty? What are some of your big takeaways?
I really liked, one is his being he started in life insurance when he was in his mom's stomach, really, right? Or, and I think
the womb.
In the womb, yeah, not in the stomach. And I think that is pretty interesting to see that his whole thing of how money really works and how he met Nelson Nash and how that was a big transition for him. We've never had the opportunity to meet him, but I had a similar experience when we watched
to meet Nelson. Yeah.
When we watched a movie on how money works, and that's what drew us. So if this helps you guys kind of have a light bulb moment because of his story, I think that was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah. There was some really cool things that were part of his story. By way of kind of recap, but also like adding some additional details. If you do go pick up a copy of Become Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash, it's a really great book. We recommend it, but you have to remember the context of Nelson and when he wrote it. There are some things in there that in 2021 might be considered offensive or a little too old school, right? He wrote it a long time ago. He was just of a different place. So keep that in mind.
Generation.
Right.
He was from the greatest generation.
Yeah. So this whole idea of do your best and leave the rest. If you read that book, take the best of it and leave the rest. Maybe if there's some analogies in there that you like, I can't relate to this. I don't really get what he's talking about. Reach out to us. We've been playing around with how to update those analogies for the 21st century as well. And would love to talk to you about some of those things.
And reading Pamela's book too, right, alongside that.
The Bank on Yourself Revolution would be a great book to read as well. And then I also love this. You don't have to have lots of money to be happy, but when you've prioritized, you know what will make you happy, and then you align your money with that. That can be no matter how much or how little you have. And I love that we get to do that. And that's a big part of what Bank on Yourself helps people do. And then this phrase, I'm totally going to steal and use again. Do you want to be in the control of the contract or at the mercy of the market? I love that phrase and would want to dig into that more. And this whole idea, like we're all individuals. One of the things I love about the types of policies that we use is that they're uniquely designed. Yeah, there's formulas and things we use, but they all need to work for the individual, and they're individualized to help that individual the best that they can. No two policies are alike.
And that's why doing a full financial analysis is so important, and not just saying, oh yeah, this is what you should do and this is how it's going to work, without even knowing context, goals, things like that.
Correct. Yep. So some of those kind of things were good reminders from Marty's wisdom that he was sharing. Okay, Brandon, I know our next episode, we're continuing with interviews. Fun fact, today, Marty shared that he was a direct marketer, that he's a big fan of that. And that's where he first started after doing just proofreading kind of things after college. And our next interviewer is also a big fan of direct marketing. So we might get into that. We haven't actually done the interview yet, so we'll see what happens. Be sure that you hit subscribe and look for that next episode that'll come out.
And while you're subscribing, don't forget to leave a review. Reviews really help in letting other people know that we exist or that you like the show. So subscribe, like, review, share, all those fun things. So
yeah.
Until next time, keep building your wealth simply and sustainably so you can break through to a smart, stable financial future. The topics presented in this podcast are for general information only and not for the purpose of providing legal, accounting, or investment advice. On such matters, please consult a professional who knows your specific situation.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.